presentation here. So this is recruiting the 21st century volunteer. This is a national presentation, and they didn't allow me to make any modifications to it at all. So this is what we're going to do. Okay, so this is our course objectives. Understand the importance of recruiting, describe the motivations of volunteers, identify the attributes of the 21st century volunteer, and know some methods of recruiting. Recruiting is not only a council or district event, and we need all kinds of help when it comes to recruiting. Commissioners, recruiting is a year-round process. We should be continually looking for candidates. Successful recruiting is far more than just asking someone to serve, but how we identify great candidates for unit service. We need to, as a unit commissioner, we need to have a servant's heart, and those are ones that need to help, willing to help others. We need to recognize that all commissioners are not alike. There are different roles needed to build effective unit service teams. Sometimes we need commissioners with wide knowledge and experience to serve multiple types of units, but that's not always the case. For example, isn't serving a new unit different from serving an established and successful one? What might be the differences in passion, potential, and priorities? Or perhaps we need someone who's a champion in new tools or processes, such as additional information in MyDOT scouting, or a commissioner to serve as a new unit commissioner for BSA, Scouts BSA female unit. All of these should be considered when we identify characteristics of a person we want to recruit. Be sure to be aware of the person's passion for volunteering, and if the potential for success as well as if the prospect can be prioritizing their time to be an effective, to effectively perform unit service. So why do we ask this question? Recruiting volunteers means finding suitable people, establishing goals for recruiting as an important part of the process of increasing the success of the process. People volunteer for many reasons, sometimes altruism, sometimes personal, but always for a purpose. For many, it's a way of giving back. Have you ever heard someone say, "My mother received excellent care in the hospital, and I want to repay them for their kindness"? Or when I was growing up, I had a coach who made a difference in my life, and I want to have the same influence on a young boy or girl. Some people aren't comfortable with the notion that volunteers benefit from doing volunteer work, but there's a long tradition of seeing volunteering as a form of charity based on selflessness. The best volunteering does involve the desire to serve others, but this does not exclude others' motivations as well. Think about it. There are only three fundamental reasons why people volunteer: influence, fellowship, and achievement. To prepare to make the ask, in preparing to make the ask, make certain you cover all 3 points. Don't try to determine in advance which is the most attractive. If you cover all 3, your candidate will focus on the one that is meaningful. If you address only one and miss their passion, your chances of success dramatically drops. So what are some ideas that help us find people who are motivated. There's emotional, personal, emotional, practical, and professional. One of the handouts is this page right here. It's a brainstorming list. So look at the categories. What would some of the actions or reactions or reasons for a recruit to recruit a current volunteer might do or say in each of these categories? What might the person's emotional, practical, professional motivation for consideration of considering accepting an invitation might be to become a commissioner?
I think a personal thing might be that they have a family member or somebody else that's involved in a troop somewhere.
That's a personal one. That's a good example. Let's go to the next screen that's got some things filled in. They might be a part of a group that is involved with that. They might have a passion and emotionally involved in having a good experience in their activity. They might have some skills or leadership that they like to share for others. So those are all different reasons that we have people might want to participate in the commissioner service side and in the scouting side. You might hear, I'm doing it for the scouts, and this is true, but sometimes that's a bit too simplistic. Volunteers are often complex, altruistic, are not often completely altruistic, and that's okay. They want something personal from volunteering, and they need to make sure that, and we need to make sure that they get what they want. Recruiting and engagement. Recruiting is a carefully planned process. Making personal connections is critical. The next group of slides introduces a technique used for recruiting that has been proven successful, especially with our 21st century volunteers. Understanding personal motivations helps us in engaging and recruiting. It is important to get to know the potential commissioner to make an effective ask and to make connections between the candidate's interests and skills and their commissioner position that they will serve in. The main focus of this class is recruiting the 21st century volunteers based on the book, The New Breed, 2nd edition, Understanding and Equipping the 21st Century Volunteer by Jonathan McKee and Thomas McKee, who are a father and son. They are still plenty of new volunteers around who will get involved, but they don't look like they used to. The book's first chapter begins with these words: where have all the volunteers gone? Why aren't people as committed as they used to be? What's wrong with young people? Why are people so busy these days? Sound familiar? Who is the new breed of volunteers? There are plenty of differences from most of us in the room. The real question is, in what ways are they different? Within the decade, it has been noted that the recruiting volunteer and the volunteer is different because of many social changes. The authors described these changes as somatic changes. Read the list, and each will be explained on the next slide. So family dynamics, isolation, flexibility, generations, technology, professionalism, eptocentric volunteering, slacktivism, micro-volunteering, and speed. Okay, so family dynamics. The nuclear family is shifted. The family of husband and wife, often with only one parent working, has evolved into the family of having a broader definition. The volunteer pool used to be stay-at-home mothers and retired persons. It evolved to a pool of persons of all ages and professional responsibilities, with at-home responsibilities limiting the available time of, to volunteer. Isolation, from the community to the individualism. People in America choose a fewer number of close friends. They become less likely to be involved in groups that use volunteers. Flexibility is moving from rigid schedules to volunteer availability. The volunteer is not the stay-at-home mom like it was typically in the late 20th century. We need to find out how they want to be involved and possibly change our job descriptions to match the volunteer schedule. Generations, from experienced veterans to novice, Gen X and millennials too. Generations look at volunteering differently for different reasons and for different connection, and make connections differently but effectively. Technology allows us to recruit differently, spread our message in different ways, and to find ways to use the virtual volunteer. Professionalism, from skilled workers to knowledgeable workers. Knowledge workers want to influence how the volunteer project should be accomplished, not just worker bees. Epiphytic volunteers, from long-term commitments to short-term projects, such as community hours required to graduate from high school. These look good on resumes. Slacktivism, from hard work to easy feel-good tasks. An example would be the bucket challenge that made the cause more visible. Does anybody recognize what that bucket challenge was? People dumping cold water all over themselves. Speed, microvolatism, working from big time commitments to bite-sized projects. Speed, from going from slow movement to fast response to change. How fast do you respond to change? How quickly do you respond to a shift in culture? Are you aware of changes in the culture? Are you able to quickly make decisions? Do you respond to a volunteer's request quickly? So now here's a list of a profile of the new breed of volunteers, things that they want to be like or have in their lives. Some are very busy. Lots of things they're doing and being a part of. They have many obligations. They want flexibility. They expect to be empowered. That's becoming an important one. They're tech savvy. They don't want to be micromanaged. They want to make a difference. So the next page is one of the handouts. And we measure our relationship handout. The unit service is most effective. Unit service is most effective is the commissioner and the unit leader have built a quality relationship. How do you know you have built a quality relationship with another individual? Jeff Ackloff and Willie Wood researched this question in terms of business customers and colleagues and developed the relationship pyramid. The relationship edge is the business connection with customers and colleagues when it's counted on. As you work through a plan to recruit, you are working through the levels of a relationship pyramid. You can see the different levels and how from broad to very focused. Within the New Breed book, there's a method described as for developing a relationship with a possible volunteer that is called the courting relationship. Its goal is to recruit volunteers by getting to know them, their passions, their potential, so that we can match their needs with ours. Recruiting is like dating. Let's look at a much better way to recruit the new breed of volunteer. The first step is the method called the first date and is carefully planned like a real first date. That careful planning will prevent it from becoming a last date. It's a way of becoming it's a way to begin a volunteer relationship. This date is to getting to know you better time. Some make some small talk with a purpose to find out what they like to do, their family, their volunteer commitments, and whatever else you can use to make connections to their passions and potentials. Talk a little bit about scouting, our mission, as well as the opportunity to tap into the 4 motives mentioned before. You can talk over coffee, or you can take them to a scouting event. The purpose is to know them better and for them to have a window into what you wish them to do. The second date is the time to discuss the possibilities in unit service with the candidate. It's helpful to share their role and responsibilities as well as ongoing training that's available. We need to listen to their questions to understand what they're thinking. If this position does not feel like the best match, we could they do a part of a position or a position in another way? How many times have you heard, oh, by the way, it's only an hour a week, which we can all smile at when we hear it, but then we know it's far from true. It's a statement that's part of our culture, but it's not, but a new person, it could be a deal breaker. Remember to carefully explain the expectations and the time needed to do the job. Understand the no and accept the answer. Sometimes it's better, it could be a empathic no. In other cases, it may be a no, not yet, or maybe later. If the answer is no, follow up with a phone call or a note to thank them for their time. Keep the relationship alive. You should reflect on why you got a no. Wrong job for this individual, right job, wrong time. You might want to go back and to this individual at another time, or maybe begin go along, invite them to a meeting, or invite them to go with an experienced commissioner to do a unit visit. Demonstrate that this is not overwhelming and that you are there to support and train them. Then when the timing is right, ask again. If yes, follow up with a letter. Begin the go along. Begin with training. Match them with a unit or whatever job you had in mind for them. The key is to follow up regardless of the answer. Follow up. It always pays dividends in the long run. 7 skills. So far, we've discussed some of the important skills that you use during the recruiting process. We'll go through each of them. Personal ask can make all the difference. Strategic partnerships, build your network or a recruiting team. Don't go it alone. short term, small bites. The more specific the time limit, the more people you'll likely get to join you. Think of a no as an open door to listen carefully to the reasons behind the no. Don't fill the position until you find the person who matches what you're looking for. Right person, right fit. Recruit specific people for specific roles. Positive volunteers attitude speaks to hiring people who appreciate the understanding of the mission and impact of commissioner service. Generations, two willing groups. 21st century has seen the rise of two huge groups that are ready to and willing and excited to help. They're the newly retired baby boomers and the older members of Y, Generation Y, millennials, and for some of us, our children. We are not really all that different. The word millennials is widely banded around the world, but the definition is actually so broad that it refers to persons born between 1981 and 1996, who can be undoubtedly very different life stages. Be sure to include both groups in your search for commissioners. The next succession plan and cannot be overlooked. Younger volunteers are our movement's future. We are their coaches and their mentors. Being and staying relevant makes room for us all. But as we all know, not having succession plans is very problematic. So planning and doing a job in such a way or for way too long makes it even more difficult to find the replacement. We often applaud long-term tenure, unit leaders, or those who or in other volunteer roles, but is that really the best approach? Recruit for character, not skill. You can't teach personality. The idea is to explain in this video, you can't send ducks to Eagle School. the last part of that where we did it ourselves. That's absolutely true. What do you think is important to remember during the recruiting process?
Everybody is different.
Everybody is absolutely different. Yep. So some other recruiting techniques is roster mining. This is actually discussed in another class called CED 712, roster mining for recruiting. Recruiting commissioners is more than just an ask. It's a year-round process that is most effective when we work together to identify candidates with their characteristics of great commissioners. The commissioner tools enables us to work together more efficiently by allowing us to capture and access actionable information about potential candidates. Who's responsible for recruiting? Recruiting isn't the responsibility of every commissioner. It's typically a responsibility of administrative commissioners. But a unit commissioner can be one of the best resources of identifying great candidates for unit service. They are in our units and engage with their volunteers. If they understand what makes a great commissioner, they will be on the lookout. Remember that commissioner tools can be recruiting tool too. The unit priorities and details section of the detailed assessment provides a field into which information can potential commissioner candidates can be entered, and for administrative commissioners to review those opportunities. Effective use of this tool requires training commissioners to use it, but it can be a great way to identify candidates. Simply run the commissioner recruitment report in commissioner tools to see possible unit commissioner candidates. Watch the video on how to use commissioner tools to see how this is done. Retaining commissioners. We have engaged and successfully recruited a volunteer. How do we ensure that the commissioner remains in unit service? Working throughout the onboarding questions of initial training for a new commissioner is extremely helpful in making a commissioner more comfortable in their position. Training is a variety of ways, both formal and informal, builds confidence in an individual. Coaching a candidate in a way that allows the new commissioner to problem solve and work collaboratively with the coach. Empowerment comes with skill development and confidence, supporting the desire to be a knowledgeable worker is described earlier, and our ability to make a difference. Recognition is given when commissioners become more confident and satisfied in their desire to achieve a goal and other motivations for volunteer service. Accountability enables the new commissioner to feel successful, especially if during the second date, the job expectations are clearly presented. Volunteering is a key way to engage people, not only to deliver critical services, but to better understand the issues, to be connected, to be passionate, to be a part of a movement to create lasting change in our communities. As an outcome of this course, each participant should understand the importance of recruiting, be able to describe the motivations of volunteers, identify attributes of a 21st century volunteer, know the methods of recruiting. It's important to take the challenge of recruiting to new commissioners, working together with the commissioner team to create a plan and work your plan. Use the ideas within this course and others you can find scouting organizational commissioners in the recruiting links. Any questions?
I think there's a lot of things there we think about. Sometimes we look at, I learned a little bit by remembering that you need to look at people's character. And
yeah.
you can teach them to do the job. but also make sure that you set an expectation. Let's see, I don't think David's on this one, but David taught me about onboarding, David Hatch.
So if anybody has questions, I'll be glad to answer them and take emails. So let me know. Or if you want, this presentation is downloaded from the Commissioner College site, so anybody could get it and have it.